Discover what I found on my unexpected visit to my son. An incredible 24-hour surprise revealed. Thomas stood before the crumbling facade of his son's apartment complex, breath pressing against his chest like a weight he couldn't shake. A swirl of guilt and fear had led him here, unannounced, but the closer he edged to the door, the louder the doubts in his mind roared. What had he hoped to find? An artist thriving in his medium, or the shadow of a boy stolen by aspirations? He knocked, heart racing, a visceral mix of determination and dread mingling within him. The door creaked open, revealing Alex, bleary-eyed and disheveled, caught off guard by the surprise. A fleeting expression crossed his son's face. Was it joy or frustration? Thomas couldn't tell. Silence hung thick as they exchanged glances, a decade of uncomfortable distance swirling in that moment, heavy with unspoken words. Could they even begin to bridge the chasm? Thomas's internal dialogues clashed, his architect's mind mapping out blueprints of connection, while his father's heart drowned in worry over what years of estrangement had done to his son. Inside, the studio felt stifling. Canvases leaned desperately against walls, some framed in hopes of a brighter future, others a reminder of unfulfilled dreams. Thomas scanned the room, discontent tightening in his chest. This clutter was a testament to Alex's battle, filled with chaotic splashes of color juxtaposed with the mundane reminders of financial strain. Bills waited patiently on a table, ominous as he pondered the gravity of an artist's life filled with uncertainty and creativity. He feared for Alex more than he cared to admit, clutching onto judgments that had molded a wall between them. A plan brewed in the back of Thomas's mind. A collaborative project could offer a sliver of reconciliation. "Let's paint together," he said hesitantly, every syllable weighed down by memories. When Alex reluctantly agreed, the tension ballooned into the air, charged with the electricity of their conflicting approaches. Thomas's rigid structure clashed with Alex's loose strokes. Memories of holidays spent drafting tension-filled conversations surfaced, fighting for space alongside the urgency to mend what had been broken. Before they could dive deeper into their chore, the endless demands of modern life broke the spell. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time slipped away as they painted, a frantic dance of creative energies tangling. Just as laughter broke through the night, a sudden crisis shattered everything. Presenting his artwork at a crucial showcase had been Alex's dream, but news came that the venue had changed, casting doubt on whether he'd be recognized. Thomas felt the pulse of anxiety rise, his heart racing as he deliberated over the reality of Alex's fragile aspirations. Should he support his son's wild dreams or pull him back to stability? His principles battled in a turbulent storm, drowning out the eagerness of reconciliation, each choice spiraling into a chasm of anxiety. In that moment, a tremor of desperation crackled between them, mirroring the crackle of broken glass from Alex's overturned easel. A moment that could have celebrated their nascent connection instantly shifted into potential disaster, and Thomas's mind swirled into chaos, yet the urgency of their shared hopes and regrets screamed for recognition. Would this shatter their fragile bond or force them to confront their demons? They stood on the precipice, each wrestling with the weight of a decision that could alter everything. The silence stretched like an elastic band, taut and ready to snap as uncertainty engulfed them. Thomas's heart pounded in his chest, a primal rhythm matching the rising tide of emotions swirling in the dim studio. Alex's grip on his brush quivered, unsure if it represented volatile creativity or an impending outburst. Why does it always have to feel like a choice between stability and passion? Alex finally broke the silence, frustration lacing his voice. He flung the brush down, swatches of paint splattering across the floor like unvoiced dreams crying out in color. Thomas felt a stab of guilt. His intentions, masked by concern, were being perceived as mere dismissal of Alex's artistic journey. "I want what's best for you," Thomas managed to say, though the words felt insipid, inadequate against the weight of his son's ambitions and grievances. It was an outdated fatherly defense, the kind that so easily brushed aside the desires and individuality of an artist's spirit. Alex stepped back, his expression a conflation of hurt and bewilderment. Best for me or best for you? You don't understand what it's like to sacrifice for something you believe in. You built structures and bridges, but I'm trying to build my identity. Art is not just a hobby, it's my lifeline. That was it. His son had hit a nerve. The structure of Thomas's world was facing a seismic shift, threatening to obliterate the carefully constructed walls he had erected to protect himself from vulnerability. He realized, in that stark moment, that it had been Alex's passion, the very same thing he had locked away through years of pragmatic decisions, that threatened to pull them apart. A dull ache settled deep within Thomas's chest, born from years of attempting to fulfill predefined outlines, a job, a career path, a strict adherence to conventional success. But in his son, he saw the embodiment of daring, an elemental force that fought against the mundane. This wasn't an unwelcome intrusion. It was a chance for both to confront their truths. What if we found a way to combine our worlds? His voice shook with tentative hope. You know, find a middle ground where your art can breathe, yet still be anchored? Alex's anger began to dissipate, the weight of the confrontation gradually easing. The flicker of something resembling interest sparked in Alex's eyes. What do you mean? That collaborative project I mentioned? Maybe we could create something that celebrates your work without shackling it to someone else's expectations, mine or anyone else's. Something fresh, something for you, unique in its chaos, yet grounded in purpose. For the first time tonight, Alex studied his father with assessing eyes, weighing the sincerity of his offer against a backdrop of years of hurt. You are willing to try this? The question bore the weight of years. Thomas took a deep breath. I may not know how to navigate the world of art, but I can learn. Just as you are learning to navigate your own battles. The air shifted. Their positions, once rigid, now lay on dynamic ground, vibrations of newfound understanding ricocheting between them. But the unspoken made way for the vulnerability beneath their defenses. Both had to question their own judgments. As they began to brainstorm ideas, colors flowed with enthusiasm as connections formed. Brushes danced across canvases coated with new purpose. Yet beneath it all, doubt still whispered. Thomas internally wrestled with the knowledge that he was not just stepping into his son's domain. He was willingly dismantling his own foundations. Their laughter broke through, a tentative bridge connecting their once fractured worlds. But just as the harmony crested, a sudden realization rippled through Thomas. The art showcase was mere days away. Alex's face blanched. The looming threat of failure surfaced as exhilaration threatened to break free. Are we just painting aimlessly, or are we crafting something that matters? He questioned again, the uncertainty returning. The urgency of their collaboration held a new weight. Could they rise to the occasion? Or would the shadows of doubt suffocate their progress before it could be birthed? As canvases awaited to be filled, they stood faced with a challenge larger than their initial fears. The time had come to create something meaningful, but failure would require them to confront the very realities they sought to escape. Would they be able to brave this uncharted territory together? The days blurred into an anxious rhythm as Thomas and Alex hurriedly transformed the studio into a vibrant tapestry of color, each stroke of the brush carrying the weight of their aspirations and fears. Mornings bled into evenings, and moments of collaboration felt like spontaneous bursts of hope intertwined with lingering doubt. As they worked side by side, Thomas sometimes caught himself hesitating, his mind flooded with memories of calculations and blueprints, of certainties that had long served him well. But here, amidst paint and canvas, the lines were far from delineated. "What if we use textures?" Alex suggested one afternoon, excitement punctuating his voice as he rummaged through a pile of materials, his fingers dancing over each item like an artist contemplating color on a palette. "We could incorporate found objects, stuff that tells a story." Thomas marveled at the layers of his son's creative mind, imaginative and unbound. This wasn't just art. It was a rebellion against being pigeonholed, and it challenged Thomas's very concept of structure. Could art really be woven with discarded fragments of life, just as he had meticulously crafted structures meant to withstand storms? "Yes, let's gather pieces that resonate with us," Thomas replied, the spirit of collaboration pushing aside lingering self-doubt. With every object they collected, old photographs, broken toys, snippets of fabric, Thomas felt the contours of his past shake loose. This was not just a project. It was a reclamation of identity for both of them. However, as the showcase approached, the sense of urgency morphed into frantic energy. Thomas noticed Alex increasingly pacing in the studio, restively checking his phone as if waiting for a message that might extinguish his fears. "What if nobody likes what we create? What if it doesn't make sense?" Alex confessed under his breath, his usually bright eyes clouded with doubt. "Then we'll keep making art, no matter the outcome," Thomas reassured him, though a soft thread of his own anxiety sprinkled into his words. Deep inside, he questioned whether the project would hold up against an audience's scrutiny, whether they had truly crafted something worth sharing. Yet with this crescendo of worry came an unexpected revelation, a growing realization of the blurred boundaries between father and son, artist and architect. Thomas pondered the moments when parental advice had felt more like imposition than wisdom. Had he spent years barricading his true self behind practicality? Now, glimmers of his own dream resurfaced, the recollection of a sketchbook left unopened for too long. "I used to dream of creating something like this," he admitted one evening, amid the smell of turpentine and paint. "I wanted to express feelings, ideas. Maybe I still do." Alex paused, his frustration momentarily giving way to incredulity. His father was not just a figure of solid reliability. He was an artist at heart, layered like the pieces they were collecting. "I never knew that," Alex replied softly, intrigue softening his anxiety. At that moment, the collaborative act shifted from fear of judgment to a partnership of discovery, both father and son unearthing their identities through each brushstroke and found object. Together, they dared to confront hidden corners of their personalities, challenging societal norms that demanded strict adherence to roles. A new urgency cracked through their dynamic. It wasn't just about the upcoming showcase anymore. It was about recognizing the deeper connections between them, about nurturing growth in ways that extended beyond a canvas. Yet, in the midst of this revelation, the night before their deadline felt suffocating. Thomas lay wide awake, the shadows of doubt creeping back. What if the threshold they had crossed wasn't strong enough to support the weight of their collaboration? The question loomed, heavy like the darkness outside. As dawn cast pale light through the windows, Thomas's stomach twisted with both anticipation and dread. Would their creation stand as a testament to their individual journeys or crumble under the weight of expectation? Their masterpiece awaited its unveiling, but the shadows of uncertainty clawed at the edges of their newfound hope. What truths would surface when the audience cast their eyes upon their work? Would the fear of judgment break them, or could they rise together? The first rays of dawn crept through the studio's cracked windows, illuminating the makeshift workspace littered with vibrant, half-finished canvases and scattered bits of their creative endeavors. Thomas sat on the edge of his stool, weary yet unable to find solace in sleep, contemplating the day that lay ahead. The weight of his anticipation felt palpable, a tension that would only dissolve within the creative cyclone they had stirred. He observed Alex, still lost in thoughts as he meticulously arranged the found objects they had collected, his brow furrowed with concentration. Thomas found himself treading a thin line between admiration and concern. His son was pouring everything he had into this art, yet the shadow of doubt loomed large, and Thomas could almost feel the pressure building within Alex. The realization that both father and son wrestled with insecurities was a profound one. They were engaged in a silent battle, armed with paintbrushes instead of swords. "What if we went live before the show?" Alex suddenly proposed, breaking the stillness of the studio. "We could show the process, invite people into our world, and let them really see what we're doing." The idea hung in the air, vibrant, yet fraught with potential hazards. Would the vulnerability of their journey, laid bare for the world to critique, strengthen their bond or shatter it? A flicker of skepticism flickered through Thomas. His years of experience had taught him to guard the imperfect, to only present the finished product. Yet, the thought of sharing their raw process intrigued him. It was a departure from his structured past, an avenue for authenticity, allowing both of them to grow into their roles as artists. "I like it. It could give us the freedom to express not just the work, but the journey behind it," he cautiously replied, weighing the risks against the potential for deeper connection. As the hesitance faded, a new surge of excitement ignited within him. They were stepping beyond the confines of expectation, extending the canvas of their relationship beyond family into artistic collaboration. They set to work, documenting their creation. Each brushstroke was mirrored by the apprehension of the viewing audience. Thomas felt exposed in a way that broke him from the rigid lines he had drawn around his life. The camera captured their struggles, moments of misunderstanding overshadowed by the thrill of discovery. Viewers connected, sending comments of encouragement, fueling their motivation. But every stroke of success felt entwined with the tension of doubt. What if the deeper layers they sought to explore were too vulnerable? Would sharing their insecurities cause Alex to retreat into isolation rather than flourish? As the day passed and viewers engaged, Thomas's stomach twisted with every message that appeared, each ringing with potential praise, but also the haunting possibility of harsh criticism. Once the stream ended, they surveyed their creation, now adorned with vibrant textures and artifacts. That's when Thomas realized that the tapestry they were weaving wasn't just a collection of elements. It was a reflection of their collective vulnerability and strength. Each piece told an emotional story, a blend of experiences that reached into corners of their souls they had been reluctant to expose. Yet, just as they began to enjoy this new shift of perspective, an unsettling thought loomed. They weren't merely creating together. They were intertwining their identities, exposing parts of themselves that had remained obscured for years. Would they be able to reconcile the potential dissonance the showcase could trigger? As the hours dragged onward, an unexpected message pinged on Alex's phone, a notification about their artwork gaining significant attention online. The very notion sent shivers down Thomas's spine. The pressure was building again, threatening to drown out the authentic joy they'd found in their craft. That evening, as shadows deepened outside, Thomas stood before their masterpiece, contemplating the life lessons they'd rediscovered together. He had boldly exchanged structured precision for a tapestry of emotion, yet the uncertain terrain ahead stood before him. What awaited them when they unveiled their collaboration? Would the world accept the rawness they'd laid bare? Or would self-doubt once more hijack their artistic journey? The morning walls of the studio felt confining, pressing in on Thomas as he sat at his easel. The news of their artwork's sudden popularity echoed in his mind, a relentless pulse that shadowed his every thought. He had expected their first shared unveiling to be exhilarating, but the reality felt heavy with uncertainty. He could not help but wonder, was their art truly a reflection of their journey? Or were they merely fragments of raw vulnerability exposed to the world? "Dad, get ready. We're going to do something incredible today," Alex said, his voice a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had prepared a series of objects to include in their work, displaying an energy that radiated hope. Yet, in front of Alex's enthusiasm, Thomas detected an undercurrent of worry creeping in, as if he were watching a high-wire act without a safety net. "What are you thinking?" Thomas asked, curiosity driving him to probe deeper. He needed to understand whether Alex was brewing yet another bold idea or was just caught up in the thrill of their newfound attention. "I want to create a piece that captures everything we've experienced over the last few days. Let's tap into that rawness, not shy away from it. Let's gamble it all." Alex's intensity sparked something in Thomas. A mix of fear and recognition simmered within him. His son was ready to burst through walls they had both erected around themselves. This was it, the very moment Thomas envisioned when he grasped the potential of collaboration. He saw that Alex was leaning into the unrest, the uncertainty, the anxiety they both felt, and it was like a mirror reflecting his own journey towards embracing imperfection. As they artistically navigated their ideas, Thomas felt a brewing storm of doubt beneath the layers of excitement. What if they soared too high and crashed down just as quick? Would their emotionally charged expression be viewed as genuine, or would critics dissect it mercilessly? He rummaged through the layered colors as if uncovering parts of his own uncertainty in each brushstroke. His internal battle intensified as he painted, grappling with raw hues that screamed vulnerability. Yet, as he splashed vibrant colors onto the canvas, he noticed Alex's confidence unfurling. The way Alex worked with fierce passion and commitment inspired Thomas to push his trepidation aside. "Dad, look!" Alex exclaimed as he held up a piece of fabric, its frayed edges symbolizing their messy process. "It's perfect. It's us. It's real." The image sparked a flicker of courage within Thomas. As they incorporated the new elements, he considered how they could not only tell their story, but also rewrite it. He began to embrace the chaos instead of fearing it. Risking everything for authenticity became his mantra, much like how he had generalized his previous work. Perhaps this vulnerability was a bridge, the link between father and son that would allow them to confront their fears together. As the hours weaved on, they worked tirelessly, each moment entrenching the fact that they were taking a leap toward transparency. They wrestled with self-doubt, but there was also a lurking exhilaration. The studio, once teeming with silence, was now resonating with their laughter and the vibrant clatter of creativity. Just as they were about to lay the final touches, a sudden notification pinged on Alex's phone. It was a message from an influential art critic. "I want to see your process unfold. Let's schedule an interview for tomorrow." A chill raced down Thomas's spine. The timeline had accelerated, throwing them into the spotlight faster than anticipated. Would they be able to articulate their journey, articulate enough to transcend their fears? In that single moment, Thomas realized they were not just creating art. They were declaring their existence in a world that could be both exhilarating and unforgiving. As he locked eyes with Alex, he saw the gleam of exhilaration and apprehension, an unscripted symphony of their shared emotion. Together, they faced the precipice of their next challenge. In that moment, uncertainty transformed into a compelling desire to confront the world head-on. "Tomorrow, we unveil not just our art, but our souls," Thomas asserted, his voice charged with newfound determination. But little did they know, a storm loomed on the horizon, ready to test their fragile creation in ways they could scarcely imagine. Would their honesty be enough to withstand the scrutiny that awaited them? As dawn broke, the sun spilled golden light into the studio, casting long shadows that danced between the clutter of paint tubes and canvases. Thomas awoke with an unsettling mixture of anticipation and dread, entirely aware that the day ahead was not simply about their artwork. It was about bearing their souls to the world. The weight of accountability pressed down on him, growing heavier as the clock ticked away precious moments. They had decided the night before to start the day with an early rehearsal, an opportunity to articulate their journey with clarity. Thomas poured himself a cup of coffee, its rich aroma a weak comfort against his rising anxiety. Across the room, Alex flipped through sketches, eager but visibly anxious. Frankly, the boy's excitement was infectious, and it wrapped around Thomas like a warm embrace, teasing him to surrender to hope. "Dad," Alex called out from amongst the scattered papers. "What if we start with our story? The first painting was about the chaos, but this piece will show how we've grown from it." His enthusiasm could easily mask the underlying wave of fear, but Thomas saw right through it. He felt their shared vulnerability shift, realigning itself with purpose. "Maybe we focus on our individual perspectives," Thomas suggested, pacing the small space in an attempt to ground himself. "What this journey means to each of us, how it's reshaped our view of the world and ourselves." His voice barely masked the tremor of uncertainty that swirled just beneath the surface. They spent hours preparing, meticulously refining words, searching for resonance in every sentence. But every time Thomas spoke, the weight of self-doubt loomed like a dark cloud overhead, obscuring the clarity he desperately sought. He started second-guessing their authenticity, wondering if their story was worth sharing. Was it entirely theirs to tell? "Dad," Alex encouraged gently, "if we don't share it honestly, who will? It's okay to be scared." The boy's words struck a chord, a reminder that vulnerability was part of the art they were crafting, both on canvas and in life. As they practiced, Thomas stumbled over his lines, the rhythm of his delivery faltering under scrutinizing internal commentary. Each time, Alex halted him. "Breathe, Dad. Just say what you feel." Something shifted in Thomas as he released his grip on perfectionism. With each word, a crack emerged in his constructed facade, exposing a trembling honesty he had long resisted revealing. Just when they started to find their footing, a sudden chime echoed through the studio. Alex's phone buzzed with a new notification. Kneeling down to check, the tension was palpable in the room. He looked up, his expression shifting to alarm. "It's the critic. They want a preview of our work as well." The brevity and urgency of the message sent a jolt through Thomas. "I can't. What if it's not ready?" In that moment, the doubts solidified once more, paralyzing his thoughts. His instinct screamed for retreat and safety. "Dad, we need to own our story. All of it." Alex's conviction was contagious, now framing the discussion with a sense of urgency. The boy's unwavering belief pushed Thomas, forcing him to confront the raw edges he had spent a lifetime trying to smooth over. Thomas's heart raced, caught in the tension between wanting to protect his creation and knowing they had come too far to turn back now. What if sharing their work exposed deeper vulnerabilities than he was ready to confront? But there, in that charged silence, he understood that their art was not merely a display, but an invitation to dialogue, an unfiltered window into their existence. "Tomorrow we will speak not just to the critic, but to ourselves," Thomas declared, steadied by his son's spirit. "We will own every part of what we've created." As they wrapped up their rehearsal, a quiet resolve nestled in Thomas. This was no longer just about artistic achievement. It was a journey towards self-acceptance and understanding. Would those realizations hold against the scrutiny they would soon face? As they began cleaning up, inexorably drawn to the urgency of their impending conversation, Thomas caught a glimpse of Alex's warmth and excitement. In that moment, a flicker of self-assurance sparked between them, but it was accompanied by a haunting question lingering in the air. Were they truly prepared to unveil not only their art, but the very essence of who they were? With uncertainty coiling tight within, they prepared to embrace the unknown. Tomorrow was not merely a day of reckoning. It was a defining moment that might alter their paths forever. The morning felt different, a tension in the air that Thomas could almost taste. It was not just another day. It was an unveiling, and his heartbeat echoed that urge. He stood in front of the mirror, his reflection hinting at hesitance. The man staring back bore the weight of his insecurities, as well as the responsibilities of a father and an artist. Was he ready to claim his narrative? Despite the polished surfaces of his life, underneath lurked uncertainty. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the strands buckle beneath the pressure of expectations. The studio, once a sanctuary, now felt like a stage for a performance that he feared would reveal too much. As the clock ticked towards their meeting with the critic, Thomas gathered the sketches and canvases into a chaotic embrace. Each piece was an exploration of trauma, resilience, and the intricate web they had both created through pain and healing. Yet today, the truth was tinged with hesitation. Were they equipped to defend the story they were about to share? Alex entered the room, all boundless energy and bright-eyed ambition. "Dad, have you thought about what you'll say?" he asked, his excitement a stark contrast to the storm raging within Thomas. "I have," Thomas replied, his voice steadying with each word spoken. "But I'm worried that what I have to say might not resonate." "That's the whole point," Alex exclaimed, determined. "People want to hear your thoughts. They want the truth." He bounced on his toes, his youthful exuberance infecting the dim space in the studio. Watching his son helped ground Thomas. Alex's passion ignited something within him, an insistent whisper that reminded him of the purpose behind their art. Vulnerability was strength. Perhaps it was time to weave his narrative into their fabric, allowing every flaw and emotion to be embraced. The studio turned into a flurry of activity as they set up for the critic's visit. Brushes danced across canvases as Thomas and Alex worked in harmony, each stroke a testament to their collaboration. Thomas allowed himself to loosen his grip, letting inspiration flow freely, rather than being shackled by fear. When Alex would inquire about details or seek feedback, Thomas noticed how easily the conversation melded into something expansive, reflecting their journey fiercely and authentically. While tacking small details, Thomas registered the power dynamics at play. Would their creation endure under scrutiny? The critic, renowned for dissecting every nuance, became a formidable figure in Thomas's mind. Yet amidst that discomfort, he found clarity. Art, however raw, was a conversation starter. "Remember," Alex said, noticing his father's breathing growing shallow, "it's not about perfection, it's about honesty." A legacy threaded with vulnerability through art was an inheritance worth fighting for. As the clock struck the hour of the meeting, they took a moment to pause, exchanging glances that conveyed more than words ever could. Their bond, the weight of shared history, and an unspoken understanding that they were stronger together. The sound of footsteps reverberated from the hallway, heralding the critic's arrival. Thomas's heart quickened, the fear of judgment mingling with anticipation. This was no longer just about presenting art, it was about declaring their truths to the world. "Let's do this," he murmured, weaving resolve into his posture as he and Alex stepped toward the threshold of an uncertain future. But as they did, an unexpected doubt clawed its way back in, a worry that maybe the world hadn't changed as much as they had. Could he truly open up, stripped of pretense, and lay everything bare? As the door swung open, a heady mix of skepticism and hope electrified the atmosphere, and the moment stretched out like elastic, waiting to snap. With the critic standing before them, Thomas stood at a crossroads. What was he truly prepared to reveal? He didn't know, but the tumult within promised that this was only the beginning of a profound discovery, not just of art, but of himself. Thomas felt an electric jolt of anticipation as the critic stepped inside. The initial exchange was formal, cool, small talk flitted around the room like dust motes in sunlight. Yet, beneath the polite surface, Thomas sensed the critic's analytical gaze probing deeper, searching not just for aesthetic merit, but for something visceral, something genuine. As they settled in front of the artwork, the weight of their creation bore down on him. The critic studied each canvas with a frown, a thoughtful squint that felt like an interrogation. Thomas's mind raced, internal dialogues battling for dominance. Was Alex right? Could vulnerability become the lifeline that connected them to the critic, or would it drive a wedge between them? "Your work carries a visceral quality," the critic finally said, breaking the silence. "But it teeters on the brink of personal storytelling. Are you prepared to lead us through your narrative?" An invitation. It struck Thomas like a lightning bolt. This was the moment he had both craved and dreaded. "Yes," he said, the word escaping his lips like a dare. "This art reflects the journey of healing, of self-discovery through pain. Each piece is a fragment of who I am and who I aspire to be." His voice steadied as he spoke, fueled by the honesty he had almost feared to share. The critic's eyebrows raised slightly, prompting Thomas to continue, the facade of doubt giving way to revelation. "I created these works with my son, Alex. Together, we faced ghosts, his youth and my struggles intertwining through paint and canvas." "Interesting," the critic replied, leaning in. "But how do you reconcile the personal with the public? Not everyone may be receptive to such raw, unrefined emotion." A moment of silence ensued, and Thomas felt Alex's expectant presence beside him, a reminder of their shared endeavor. Clara, the critic's assistant, shifted in her seat, her eyes flickering between the two of them. In that stillness, doubt festered. What if their truth was too much? "They may not be receptive," he replied, the fear creeping back. "But isn't that the point? If we don't open ourselves, how can we connect?" As he spoke, a gradual shift began. Thomas found himself standing taller, lighter even. The words that had once felt like shackles now coursed through him, their weight disappearing. He glanced at Alex, whose expression glimmered with pride and confidence, encouraging him to dive deeper. "Art exists in a space between creator and audience," he continued, allowing the layers of his story to unfurl. "If I hide behind a facade of perfection, it will only echo the silence of my past. Revealing my flaws gives voice to others who suffer in silence. With this vulnerability, I want to spark real conversations. It's uncomfortable, but that discomfort is where growth begins." The critic appeared contemplative, intrigued, perhaps even softened. "It's a bold choice, navigating the realms of personal and universal. Yet, your ability to stand tall amidst the uncertainty shows the power of your art." A flicker of hope ignited within Thomas. He was slowly unraveling the narrative that he had once feared to confront. Every brushstroke, every creased canvas screamed for acknowledgement, and in sharing that, perhaps he regained a part of himself that had been lost for far too long. The air crackled with potential as the discussion flowed, Thomas and Alex alternating insights, revealing layers of their shared experience. He had begun to understand. Each question was an opportunity to dig deeper, to confront who he was and how he could grow from it. Then, abruptly, the critic's expression changed. "This is impressive work truly, but it needs something more to compel a critical audience. How do you plan to enhance this vulnerability into an experience that demands attention?" The question struck Thomas like a herald. This was not merely a critique, it was a challenge to elevate their art into something impactful, something that transcended personal narrative and struck at the very heart of human experience. "This is just the beginning," he whispered, the spark of ambition brushing against the fabric of possibility. The uncertainty hadn't vanished, but it had transformed. Now, it became the catalyst for a daring new venture. He felt his pulse quicken, igniting an insatiable curiosity about what was next. But as they ventured further into the depths of their conversation, another fear emerged. Could he find the courage to embrace this challenge? Would he unravel even more of himself in the process? The critic leaned closer, ready for more. But Thomas could only blink in astonishment, awareness dawning. This was not merely a test of art. It was a test of him as an individual, one that would forever alter his trajectory. How far was he willing to go to unearth the truth behind his art and himself? Thomas felt the weight of the critic's words settle around him, a palpable challenge hanging like fog in the air. He could sense the urgency in his own heartbeat, a rhythm that matched the escalating stakes of their discussion. Over the months, his artistic endeavor with Alex had transformed into a shared journey, a confrontation of their pasts and futures. But now it demanded more than mere honesty. It required a kind of boldness that felt daunting, enhancing vulnerability. The phrase echoed in his mind, twisting and turning as he mentally dissected its implications. He envisioned their shared canvases, bold strokes of color and emotion, each a testament to their struggles. Still, the nagging thought came unbidden. Was he ready to amplify their narratives into something that resonated with strangers, amplifying their pain and triumph alike? Art is visceral, the critic continued, pulling Thomas from his reverie. But how do you pivot from personal therapy to universal relevance? Do you dare strip away the layers even further? The critic's intense gaze bore into him, igniting a simmering determination within Thomas. Yes, I could, he realized, the warmth of conviction igniting a fire within. But what does that look like? How do I shape this into a shared experience? He glanced at Alex, who watched intently. The boy's spirit flickered with understanding, as if he could also see the potential for transformation within the dialogue unfolding before them. Together, they had unearthed a plethora of emotions in their creations, but the path to universal relevance was murky. He needed a strategy, a plan that would bind their vulnerability to the shared human experience, presenting it without the safety net of detachment. Perhaps, Thomas ventured, testing the waters, we can incorporate interactive elements. Let viewers engage with the artwork through touch or participation, inviting them to confront their own stories alongside ours. The critic's eyebrow raised. Was it intrigue or skepticism? Engagement can shift the experience, yes. But how do you ensure that this interaction resonates? Art is not merely an invitation, it's a proclamation. It demands attention. Thomas felt a ripple of anxiety cross him, yet he held fast to his resolve. This was the moment he had yearned for, the opportunity to elevate their art into something greater. We can juxtapose our journeys with those of people in our community, he described, the vision taking clearer shape in his mind. By weaving in personal narratives, allowing visitors the space to reflect on their struggles and triumphs, we could cultivate a profound dialogue. An ambitious undertaking. The critic leaned back, considering. Clara scribbled notes, entranced by the conversation. The initial flicker of fear morphed into exhilaration, igniting his desire to connect and capture synergy among shared experiences. The clock ticked mercilessly in the background as Thomas fed on the push and pull of this dialogue. He recognized, however, that every decision came with risks. Vulnerability had its price, and exposing his soul further might strip him of the very essence he sought to portray. But the question loomed large. Could he truly leave behind art that only whispered his story while yearning for it to shout? In that moment, a new fear lurked in his psyche. What if their amplifying vulnerability met resistance and misunderstanding? What if their daring approach led to failure instead of connection? The thought swirled around his mind, masking the initial thrill with hesitancy. He felt himself teetering on the brink of bold creative choices, yet uncertainty gnawed at him, urging caution. The critic watched him closely, assessing, waiting for a spark of certainty to ignite. "Dare you to explore this new vein?" she prodded gently, sensing his hesitation. "What can you learn from the fear that resides in your heart?" A wave of adrenaline surged within Thomas. Facing this fear could unravel not only the narrative threads encumbering him, but also spark an awakening in his artistry. "I will," he finally affirmed, the words flowing from him like brushstrokes, vivid and free. "I will explore it, dare to connect through our stories." As resolve wrapped around him like a warm cloak, he felt an urge to document this evolution. Each revelation and insight was vital for amplifying the dynamic experience he envisioned. What they could build might transcend art and stretch into a conversation, a powerful exchange bubbling beneath the surface. But as the critic leaned back, contemplating his words, Thomas felt the next wave of anxiety wash over him. One question remained, a fundamental reckoning. How prepared was he to confront the chaotic power of truth as it spilled from his brush? The critic's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts, her challenge now a pulsating question of destiny. The time has come to face the unknown, Thomas. Are you prepared for where this journey might lead? He inhaled deeply, feeling the electrifying pulse of imminent transformation, one that would not only redefine his artistry, but transform the very fabric of who he was becoming. Thomas stood in the gallery, his gaze scanning the vibrant canvas that represented not just his journey, but a labor painted with the intertwined threads of his and Alex's vulnerabilities. Today marked the culmination of an exploration that had pushed both father and son toward an unanticipated convergence of artistry and authenticity. It was a bold proclamation, confronting the realities they had both long avoided, and ultimately a testament to their evolution. The exhibition opening pulsed with energy. Friends, family, and curious strangers milled about, sharing opinions and experiences evoked by the pieces displayed. The colorful chaos that splashed across their collective canvas was a striking representation of the beautifully flawed aspect of both their lives. Each stroke told a story, layered in meaning, revealing not just their struggles, but the triumph that emerged from facing those struggles head-on. They exchanged glances, a silent understanding woven between them. No longer were they merely father and son. They had transformed into collaborators, each shaping the other's narrative with their shared brushstrokes. Gone was the uncertainty that had once gripped Thomas. He felt solid confidence in his artistry and an established connection with Alex, an undeniable bond built on vulnerability and courage. "Look at this," Alex said, excitement bubbling over as he noticed a gallery visitor absorbed in their work, wiping away tears. "They resonate with it." "Yes," Thomas replied, pride swelling in his chest. "We've proven that excellence doesn't lie solely in perfection. It is found in authenticity, shedding the weight of expectation and embracing imperfection." The critic had provided them with a pathway, but it was their willingness to confront the depths of their fears that ultimately forged the path forward. Together, they had created an interactive installation, an engagement with the audience that invited reflections and conversations. They engaged individuals, sparking dialogues about their perceptions, how the rawness they had laid bare could evoke feelings they had all suppressed. The hour sped by, filled with laughter and revelations, with people marveling at the courage Thomas and Alex displayed by sharing their journeys. He had once feared that revealing himself would render him vulnerable and exposed. But here he was, standing tall, feeling the electric hum of recognition. Their art, a fusion of personal storytelling and universal truths, was finally being acknowledged. A few moments into their conversation with a guest, an art collector approached them, keen-eyed and curious. "Your work stands out," he stated, gesturing toward the canvas that encapsulated the otherness each had felt growing up. "It tells a story that resonates with so many. I'd like to speak to you about a potential exhibition." Thomas felt his heart leap. This was the opportunity he had awaited. It wasn't just an invitation for recognition, it was a moment that validated their efforts together. It confirmed the belief that sharing the messiness of their journeys could transform perspectives and bring genuine connection. As he entered further into traction with the collector, he realized that this was not just a career milestone, but a personal achievement, proof that confronting their fears and showcasing their vulnerabilities was worthwhile. The void of self-doubt that had once held him captive evaporated, replaced instead with a cathartic sense of accomplishment. He had grown beyond the architect of structures and into the creator of meaning. Alex overheard their discussion, and his face lit up with pride, mirroring the luminescence of a shared victory. Thomas turned to him, filled with earnest recognition of how far they had come. "We did this together," he said, the truth resonating between them. "Yes, Dad," Alex replied, his voice steady with newfound confidence. "We embraced our stories and forged something beautiful from it." As the evening progressed, Thomas reveled in the adoration of their peers, and, more importantly, the validation of their bond. The years of estrangement, the apprehensions of the past, each hurdle had led to this moment of recognition and triumph, and both felt liberated by their journey together. It was clear now, he had achieved something extraordinary, not just in terms of personal growth, but also as a father, a role he had come to embrace fully. By stepping into vulnerability, Thomas had found a peer in Alex, father and son intertwined in both artistry and shared experiences. This gallery opening was just the beginning, a testimony to their metamorphosis. Armed with authentic expression and the freedom to share their truths, both were ready to take on new horizons in both art and life. In that defining moment, Thomas understood that he hadn't just found success, he had discovered fulfillment and a deep connection that he had long yearned for. As the night drew to a close, laughter echoed through the gallery, a joyful celebration of new beginnings. He had conquered his fears, achieved recognition through shared intensity, and most importantly, reclaimed his relationship with Alex. They had transformed into pillars of support for one another, their stories woven together as the fabric of their shared experience. For those who dwell in the depths of creativity and seek inspiration, this journey was a powerful reminder. Vulnerability fosters connection. It is there that true art resides. Now, if you enjoyed this incredible journey, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Every action matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative conclusion. What resonated with you? And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.